sort of shifting into the NBA here. We talked about coaches. You know, you talked about the UNC coach. You've talked about the Gonzaga coach, and then obviously Coach K. So another historical coach that is known for his wins and his longevity. Obviously, us being Spurs fans, Pop recently won the win record. So whatever your thoughts are on that, and then obviously we have to ask the question now, which is when does he retire and who replaces him? Because I was so I've talked about this on previous episodes, so I'm not gonna go too long here. I'm just gonna let you go, but just to start the conversation off, I was all in full eggs in one basket on Becky Hammon. I was ready for her. I've gone to games and I've seen her with my own eyes in person, behind the sideline, like with Pop. I've been, I would say, like 20 rows back from her and Pop, and saw how they interacted with each other, and I was so ready for Becky Hammon to take over because I felt like she could do it. And now I have no idea who it's going to be. I've seen multiple names thrown around. I saw the most recent one was the Jazz coach, and I don't know much about him. I think it is kind of ironic though that we got the win record against him, and then we're asking to recruit him. But I mean, yeah, I don't. I was full set on Becky Hammon, so I've no strong or opinions one way or the other on any of the other coaches. I joked about last episode how I would love to get an old coach that worked with the Spurs, but they're all on playoff teams now. You know, Monty Williams, Mike Budenholzer, Suns and the Bucks. Steve Kerr obviously has Curry and Klay Thompson. He's not coming back anytime soon. So,
Even
yeah.
the Jazz coach used to coach the Austin Toros.
Yeah. But it's yeah. I have no idea who we're gonna get now. I don't. And the Pop win record. I already did a sort of a video about what it means to me. So I don't know. It's just he's been here forever. You can't think of the Spurs without thinking of Pop. And I know some people that I know a few people that actually don't like Pop, and I'm like, you can't be a basketball fan and not respect the man. But they're actually they brought up the fact like how he became coach, which was, he was an executive before he was a coach, and then as an executive he basically fired the other guy and hired himself. But it's like he saw the future in him being successful as the coach, so I don't blame him for that. And he's done tremendous things, and nobody can ever take that away from him.
Well, I mean, yeah, I remember that because people hated when he was hired, and that's the funny thing is he's exalted now, but everyone was like, he has no experience. He's going to run the team into the ground, and since then they've risen higher than ever before. And the thing about Pop for me, I don't know when he's going to retire. I
I
tended to
know
think,
his. I forgot to mention this. I didn't mean to cut you off. Sorry,
oh,
but
you're good.
I forgot to mention. I do know that his contract is either up next season or 2023. But
Yeah,
with retirement, you can retire pretty much anytime you want. But
yeah,
I could see him seeing his contract through, but I don't know what we do after that.
yeah. I guess my answer is I really don't care when he retires. As long as Pop wants to coach this team, I'm fine with it. And it's funny because I know I have said I'm biased, but having met both Roy Williams and Mike Krzyzewski and seen how they coach, I think his style relates a little bit more to that of Roy Williams. One thing about Pop and about Roy at Carolina, he is much more than a coach. I mean, he is every role in between. For some of these kids, he's like a second father or a first father. I mean, he's a mentor, he's a counselor, he's a guy they can go to. He teaches them about the game, he teaches them about life. I mean, I don't care what your political views are, if you agree with him or not. To preface this, my whole idea is, I mean, Peter Holt was one of the biggest donors to the Trump campaign, and Pop has loudly been a Biden supporter. and all that. And neither of them have a problem with each other. Holt doesn't care what Pop says. Pop doesn't care who Holt gives his money to.
Yeah.
So there you go. You can have views and still keep the focus on basketball. It doesn't have to just be not talking about anything. But whether you agree with his political views or not, he's encouraging his players to get out and learn about the world and the spectrum of things. He's just there for guys in a way that lots of other coaches aren't. And it's funny, I was texting, I don't know if you remember Matty from when I was on OOC. He was Spurs fan blog a while on Twitter.
I don't remember. I'm sorry.
Nah, dude, I'll have to introduce you because you'd love Matty. He's like passionate about the Spurs. He's got some great takes. But
All right.
I was texting him after Pop won that game, and to me, obviously DeJounte got to him, but the first person to get to him besides DeJounte was Rudy Gay, who doesn't even play for Pop anymore. He plays on the team that he just beat.
Yeah.
And he's over there. And Juancho Hernan Gomez played one game for Pop, and he was the second guy to get to him over there and congratulate him and thank him for, his time for just a few days he was head coach. I mean, how many coaches do you see having that kind of effect on players? And Mike Krzyzewski is a fantastic coach. He's one of the best X's and O's number guys by far. And I know he lost his last home game when they had the big ceremony for him, but how many players do you see with the kind of relationship that we saw from the Spurs with Pop in that locker room do that with their coaches? I mean, they're hugging him like he's family and stuff like that. And granted, in Krzyzewski's credit, a lot of these guys are there for 1 year and they just don't get to know him as well. But he means something to these kids. He's the guy for DeJounte. He's the guy that took a chance on him when it seemed like nobody else would. And they've helped each other to flourish. I mean, there's much more to the game of basketball than drawing up plays on the court in Greg Popovich's eyes. And that's why there's this strong culture that's built here where, we have a guy from Argentina and a guy from the British Virgin Islands or whatever who moved to San Antonio of all places, stayed there for 20 years and continue to live there. I mean, I like the city of San Antonio, but come on, man. Those guys have the income to live anywhere in the world, and they choose to stay there. And that starts with him. And, there's a reason despite the Spurs being bad, there's a reason that half the league has hired coaches who have studied under this guy because they want them to come in and try to replicate that success with their teams. I mean, other teams recognize that he goes about things the right way, and they want to do that too. So love him or hate him, you can't deny just how much he means to the franchise and to the game of basketball as a whole. And he gets criticized for so many things, but when it comes down to it, and this is where I equate him to Roy Williams. If you're a Carolina fan, you would see this every year. Oh, Roy's outdated. He's got to go. Look at these rotations he's running. I mean, sound familiar?
Yeah.
And then 3/4 of the way through the season, Roy would switch up the starting five in a way that nobody had seen coming. And one of them was eerily similar when he moved. He decided to start a shooting guard at power forward and run a small ball unit. You remember what we did in the bubble?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just something not a lot of people really saw coming, and it works, and he goes with it. So, Pop's just an incredible person and an incredible coach, and I will take him as long as he wants to be here. As far as replacing him, I'd love Becky. I'd love Ettore Messina if he came back from coaching in Italy and got his shot. I mean, Quinn Snyder, he's the name because he's both played and assisted for Mike Krzyzewski, and then been under Pop's mentorship as the D-League coach and stuff like that. I just don't understand why he'd leave Utah unless they had a complete teardown. But it's gonna be tough to replace him, man. And I know a lot of people think that oh, if you fire Pop and get a different coach, things are going to get better. And they're not going to instantly get better. It's like I told people last year. They thought if we got rid of DeRozan, things would instantly be better. And they weren't. We started off this season rough. While we might be starting to gel now, I mean, think back to those losing streaks at the start of the season. We missed DeMar DeRozan, and we will miss Pop when he leaves too. So I'm not in any hurry, but whatever he decides to go, I'll wish him well.
Yeah, that's why I liked Becky so much, because again, like Becky had been like interacting with Pop, so she sort of knew what the deal was. And Tim Duncan had that famous Hall of Fame speech talking about Pop, but nothing that Tim Duncan said in his Hall of Fame speech about Pop was anything new. We already knew the sort of relationship that those two had. We knew that Pop was another sort of father to him. We knew how close he was with Tim Duncan, and yeah, I bought the newspaper whenever it came out. I told my friends at work, because I work at a grocery store, and I told them, I said, "Yo, Pop broke the win record tonight. You best believe I'm going to be here when the store opens and buy that newspaper, because it's going to be front page." Sure enough, I walk in at 6 o'clock in the morning, all the newspapers are stocked up, and it's front page. It's, we dumped Gatorade on them in the locker room. It was like we won our sixth trophy. And, of course, Pop being humble was like, it isn't a championship. We still got a game tomorrow, so let's go. And, yeah, and the whole thing with you, saying, it's San Antonio, and as much as you love San Antonio, I hope I hope I don't get in trouble for saying this joke, because I live in San Antonio, and I go to a San Antonio college, and a lot of my subscribers are Spurs fans, but my dad is also from San Antonio, and I remember him telling a joke on Christmas, and a lot of the tamale places were sold out, because he had waited to get tamales until Christmas Day, when usually he does it like a week before.
Yeah.
And so he was like, he comes back with the tamales, and he's like, "Oh, I had to go to like this really sketchy place to get them. It was like a drug deal." And I made a joke, and I was like, "Was there a washing machine on the corner?" And he goes, "Son, it's San Antonio. There's a washing machine on every corner." But yeah, I mean,
no, and like I love San Antonio. I never lived in San Antonio. I grew up in Brownsville, Texas, on the very tip. Shout out to my 956 peeps. But it's I love it, but it does not have the allure of somewhere like New York City or Boston, or just the type of things when people think of the big cities in the U.S. San Antonio doesn't come up very often.
Yeah.
And
it's usually Houston or Dallas or Austin or something.
Yeah, and as my last point about Pop, I think the ultimate view of him as a coach wasn't necessarily anything Tim said about him, but what he said about Tim at his jersey retirement. And it struck me because he said, they always ask that age-old question, if you could have dinner one time with anyone dead or alive, who would it be? And he said that he'd pick Tim Duncan. And I'm like, this is a guy Pop spent almost every day of his life with for 20 years. And he still thinks of him so highly as a person and a player that's who he'd pick out of everyone in history. And I feel like if he could pick every member of his team, he would over anybody else. And that's just incredible caring from a coach right there. There's never going to be another coach like Pop.